Okay, YouTube. Um, so I just had another update. If you've been following my little videos here, you know that I've been chasing problems and trying to figure this out. This is the Singer 111 W153 machine. And anyway, my last video, I was trying to follow some steps here that I have. I have a bunch of paperwork that I had downloaded off the internet, some instructional stuff, and some of it's helpful, some of it doesn't really make sense to me. But anyway, I had it working for a short spell, and then I decided to follow the directions as per what it said. It gave you like troubleshooting. It said if it's doing this, then do this, this, and this. So anyway, I best I could, I followed those directions and put some of these things back to where they said to put them, at least from what I understood of it. And it totally messed up the machine. It didn't work at all after I did that. So I was kind of back to square one. So I started to, yesterday, I basically reverted and kind of undid some of these things, and I actually got it to work again. However, I ran into a couple of different problems, which is pretty crazy. So if you watch, I have some pretty, I don't think it's 100%. Well, I know it's not 100% correct, but it is actually walking and feeding the machine. The needle movement is not correct, so I need to time the needle, which I'm not exactly sure how to do. But let me just put a piece of I've been using this to see if it's actually moving. Oops. So if you watch that, it is actually of course it's going a little slower because I'm doing it by hand, but it is actually feeding the machine. But if you notice, it's still pushing forward and then going back. So I'm losing some movement. See that little forward motion? Watch right here, right there, right there. That should not be pushing that forward at all. So I'm not sure how to really get that correct. And also, obviously, the needle is not doing the correct thing. So it's not right. It's working to some extent, but it's not right. So my other issue was that I have not run into yet, but the other problem that I just ran into, I should say, is I'll show you underneath. All right, so I don't know if you can see this. So one of my one thing that I did to get it working again was and it still does not make sense to me, but I guess this is the way it's got to be. That the lifting lobe right there, there's a set screw. As I was stating before, to me it makes sense to have that set screw on the machine to flat part of the axle, which doesn't seem to be the case. So it's off of that now, as well as something in the back that I'll show you in a minute. But anyway, one thing that I ran into was, while this was working a little bit, I was trying to adjust the needle spacing, or I should say the hook spacing to the needle, which is right up in here, if you could see. So I'll see if I can get that needle down. So there goes the hook. Here's the needle. And there is the hook. So it's actually pretty darn good right there from what I could, from what I could tell. But what's happening is, to adjust that in and out, you loosen this and this, and that slides this mechanism left and right. The weird part is these two teeth, or these two gears, need to basically be lined up. And one problem that I'm having right now is there's like when I'm spinning this, it gets tight. There's a tight spot, like right there. There's a tight spot. It does not want to, go over the hump, sort of say. Now, I did loosen the bottom gearing here and here, and I tried to allow it to move freely back and forth to align with this. However, this silly gearing is like really tightly on the shaft, and I've oiled it and I've tapped it, and it doesn't move freely at all, really. I can just barely get it to budge, and what was happening was I literally was tapping it this way, and all of a sudden I created a whole big knocking system. Like, I loosened up the whole axle, and the whole axle was knocking back and forth, which was screwing everything else up. So that had happened in one of my earlier videos, and I didn't know how to fix that. And what I kind of found was, because there doesn't seem to be like any set screw necessarily to hold it. So what I did was, there is actually a set screw hiding up in here, and that actually pinches, well, it actually holds this. That's what that does. And that, I don't know if you'd see it or not, but that sandwiches this. So effectively, and then you have a set screw here. So you can kind of sandwich it all together and then pinch it here. So that kind of holds the back and forth part. At least that's the best I can tell. I could be wrong, but that's how I accomplished fixing that back and forth movement. So anyway, I'm kind of stuck because I can't really move this gearing very easily at all. And when I move this to where it needs to be up here, it develops like a pretty tight spot. And it's weird because when I loosen this bolt a little bit, it effectively frees it up. So it's not, it loosens the tolerances up, I guess. And it spins pretty well. I'm not really sure what to do about it. I ran it like this, and it will work, but I don't want anything to break or burn out because of that tight spot. It's like right there, gets tight, right there. So I'm not really sure how to fix that. I haven't figured out really how to brace the axle enough to really bang on this and get it free. I was thinking about maybe, because that's the axle and that tends to just pop out this way when I bang it over to the left. So I was thinking about maybe like putting a block clamp here to just support that, and then I can kind of bang this that way. I don't know. I don't want to break anything. So anyway, let me show you, if anybody has any comments or suggestions on how to really remedy this tight spot, or how to get this free without breaking anything, that would be helpful. The other thing I wanted to just show you is, put this down. So the other thing I did to get this foot movement was, I don't know if you can see in there, but there's a set screw here and there. And I didn't want to touch that because it was on. I don't know if you could see it, but that axle also has a machine flat right there. And I just figured that was probably where it needed to be. But so anyway, I changed it. I loosened both things up. I rotated it on the axle, and I held this in place, and I let that spin, and then I retightened it, and that's what gave me some of the better walking motion. Now, as you can see, it's kind of like lopsided or oval or whatever you want to call it. Now, if somebody's out there can help me figure out how to really adjust, how you adjust the actual feet movement and or the feet height, and maybe even set the needle or time the needle correctly. Those things I'm not really sure on how to do it. You know, the feed dog seems to be pretty close to being right. Although it's, actually I shouldn't say that because it is, I think it's coming up too soon because it's pushing the material forward a little bit before it starts to go back. Yeah, so I gotta play with that cam, that lifter cam a little bit more, but you know, that's as good as I've gotten it for a while. But anyway, maybe somebody, if you guys know how to do that, if you guys could put together a video on how to adjust these feet, timing the needle, and adjusting that motion, the lift and the motion. I know you can adjust they say you can adjust the lift by this screw, but what is confusing is this bar works both of these feet mechanisms. So if the bar rocks one way, it lifts this. If it goes the other way, it lifts that. And it seems like when I kind of like get one foot working well, the other foot gets messed up. So I'm doing something wrong, obviously. But anyway, thanks for watching, and this is, I feel like I'm getting there. I'm getting somewhere. At least it's doing something correctly. So anyway, thanks for watching again.